please.
Hello.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished Bradfordians, elders, scholars, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very big welcome to you all on this inclement evening, and my apologies for the delay in starting. It's been a busy day for us. We went to Newcastle today, which is not the easiest place to get to from here, but it was a very successful day. Newcastle United won 1-0, and the scorer of the winning goal was a Muslim, which must have cheered the hearts of the huge number of Newcastle citizens who turned out for the rally to confront the so-called Pegida, a German Nazi outfit imported from Germany to Britain, were used to their Audis and their Mercedes and all the other good things that they produce. But this is a German import which is not wanted in Britain. And we confronted them in our thousands. And you can read all about it, at least in the Daily Mail. Although the Daily Mail saw it rather differently from how we did. They said that we were a part of a pro-Islam rally, even though 95% of the people on the rally were not Muslims. They were Newcastle citizens, workers, men and women, young and old, black and white, Muslim, non-Muslim, Christian, Jew, unbelievers, who were united in one thing, that this tide of hatred against Muslims in Britain must stop before it goes any further. That was our demand. And I say to the Daily Mail, who will no doubt have someone here today, you have some responsibility in this. You, the media, have some responsibility in this situation. Of course, they're going to cover this so-called jihadi John, this killer, this murderous killer. But he's no more representative of British Muslims than Anders Breivik was of Norwegian Christians when he murdered 65 children in Norway a couple of years ago. Nobody asked the Christians in the world to apologize for Breivik. Why would they? But why are Britain's Muslims, 2.7 million of them, being somehow held responsible for the actions of extremists here and elsewhere? A point to which I shall return. I see a Palestinian flag coming in, and it's very, very welcome, along with the Kashmiri flag, which is equally welcome. That was another funny thing about the Daily Mail coverage that I've just read. It featured pictures of the fascists, the ugliest looking bunch of people you ever saw in your whole life, with tattoos on their tongues. I'm not making that up. Tattoos on their fingers, on their faces. I'm not making that up. Giving Nazi salutes in England, in Newcastle. The country, our country, which stood against Hitler, has people holding British flags giving Nazi salutes. But there was one foreign flag visible for all to see, held aloft by these would-be Nazis, and that was the flag of Israel. Hasn't it come to something that the flag of Israel is carried in Britain by fascists? We make absolutely no apology as a Respect Party for our stand in support of the Palestinian people. We make absolutely no apology to anyone for our support for the right of self-determination for the people of occupied Kashmir. That's where we stand. We disdain to hide our views. But that doesn't mean we're against Jews, and it doesn't mean we're against Indians. Far from it. Many Indians and many Jews are in our movement for justice for the Palestinian people and freedom for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. That's just by way of an introduction. I welcome you on this, as I say, inclement evening to the election launch, as we're in the Taller ward, principally of Shiraz Hussain, the Respect candidate for the Taller ward in the council elections on the 7th of May. Shiraz has a mass following in this ward. I know it because I've been going around the ward with him. And I could see the respect and the affection in which he's held by people young and old throughout this ward. And I'm absolutely sure, as sure as eggs is eggs, that by around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on the 8th of May, it'll be Councillor Shiraz Hussain. I'm absolutely sure about that. And I tell you this, he'll be a massive improvement in that council, a point to which I shall also return. It's also the official launch of our candidate for the Manningham ward, Mohammed Salis. And I'm absolutely sure that Mohammed also is going to be victorious in the Manningham ward. And he too will bring a massive improvement to City Hall. And we need that. We need councillors elected to hold to account the leadership of this city, which is the worst council in England.
No,
I've been saying that. Sorry?
Leeds is.
I don't know. Leeds is booming and we're sinking. That's 40 years ago. Leeds and Bradford were entirely comparable cities. In the next 40 years, Leeds boomed and Bradford sank. And that's the process that we have got to reverse. And it's still happening. When I arrived here, just 3 years ago, not even yet 3 years ago, Bradford schools were the 5th worst in Britain. 5th worst. You'll all have heard me condemning that over and over again. We're now the 2nd worst in Britain. We've sunk down the schools league. And the councillor responsible for our schools is still in his job. At least Harry Redknapp resigned when he reached 2nd bottom of the Premiership. But it never seems to occur to the council leadership in this city that they are responsible. With power comes responsibility, but they refuse to take any. Some things, of course, have improved in that just less than 3 years. When I arrived in Bradford, just 3 years ago, there was a giant hole in the centre of the city where Westfield was supposed to be. It had lain an empty hole for the best part of 10 years. Bradford City Council tore down a part of its own heart and left it as a hole gathering rainwater because none of them had the sense to force Westfield to sign a contract that once they had done so, Westfield had to build. It was a gentleman's agreement, except they weren't playing with gentlemen. And so our city became a byword for municipal incompetence. When I arrived here just 3 years ago, the Odeon, one of the twin icons in the city centre, was shrink-wrapped, crumbling and falling down. And the council wanted it to fall down to save them the cost of knocking it down, which would have left a second hole in the centre of Bradford to match the one we already had. And just after I arrived, the government came forward with a proposal to close the National Media Museum, our only national institution. What's the situation now? Westfield is rising like a phoenix from the ashes, and God willing, in a couple of months, will be open, bringing jobs, bringing footfall, bringing customers, bringing to life again the city centre in Bradford. The Odeon is no longer shrink-wrapped. It's no longer falling down. It's been saved. We got the money. It's been kick-started. And soon, it too will be again a building to be proud of. The National Media Museum was saved from closure by a campaign which even my worst enemy would concede was led by us. Indeed, the minister, the Conservative minister, Ed Vasey, from the dispatch box, said that we had ably led, the campaign to save the National Media Museum. When I arrived here, Bradford City Football Club were about to be relegated from the Football League. Since when, we've been to Wembley twice, and we're on our way to Wembley again, God willing, in this latest cup run. Now, I never kicked a ball. I didn't score any of their goals. The players and their manager and the owners are responsible for that. But it definitely represents a change in mood, a change in atmosphere since the Bradford Spring. And if we all get elected on the 7th of May, I'm pretty sure we're going to win the cup. I'm pretty sure. We're standing here on our record. My two friends as community activists of outstanding quality, with a mass following in their wards. And me, on the record, not just of the last 3 years, not even the last 30 years, the last 40 years and more of political activism. When I speak in Parliament, people come in rather than go out, which is the case, I can assure you, for most speeches in Parliament. When I speak in Parliament, millions of people watch the speech on YouTube afterwards. I promise you that doesn't happen to many members of Parliament. There's millions of people listening on YouTube to the recordings of my Talk Sport radio show 10 years ago. Check it out and see. I have been standing for things that are important, indeed precious, to the people in this constituency long before I was looking for your votes. Nobody can say, I support Kashmir because I'm looking for your votes. No. Because I supported Kashmir before I'd ever set foot in Bradford, and when virtually nobody else did. Nobody can say I oppose Israel's crimes against the Palestinian people, because I've been doing that this summer for exactly 40 years. 40 years. Nobody can say I opposed the Iraq war because I was looking for your votes. I was a leader of the movement against the war in Iraq before any prospect of any kind of being the Member of Parliament here in Bradford was visible or discernible. Now, there are many reasons why I want to be returned for one more term as the MP for Bradford West. Many reasons. Local, national, and international. I'd go through them all, except I'm soon to appear live on Sky News at the back of the hall, and I want my friends to have a chance to say something while the camera and I are still here. I want to get us up that league of the school's tables. I want to fill the potholes in that nearly wrecked my car coming here. I want Bradford Royal Infirmary to be something to be proud of, rather than something where we're just one step ahead of the inquiry teams looking into this or that failing. I want to see the Odeon open. I want to see Westfield buzzing. I want to see the National Media Museum overhauled, reinvested, and drawing people from all over, not just the county, but the country. I want to see us build on the Tour de France, which toured Bradford but didn't come into the city even though we paid for it. Why don't we have an annual tour of Yorkshire? The centre of Bradford is perfect cycling country. There are many, many domestic planks to our platform, which will roll out over the next 75 days or so. I want to be in a parliament that will probably be a hung parliament. Because when it's a hung parliament, the individual MP has got quite a lot of power, you know. Because Ed Miliband will have to come and see me every night and ask if I'll support them.
Never.
And if I don't, it won't go through.
Never.
And if he does, I'll say yes, but there's a price. If you want my vote, you better do something about Bradford schools. If you want my vote, you better do something about the mass unemployment in the city. 50% of our young people out of work. I'll have many demands in that hung parliament, and they'll all be for you. But I only have time to concentrate on one more thing. The Chilcot report into the Iraq war was made for me, you know? Who would you prefer, rather than me, to be the prosecutor-in-chief of Tony Blair when the Chilcot inquiry finally reports? Who? Do you think anybody else other than me is going to do it?
What about Ed Miliband?
Well, Ed Miliband can't do it because Tony Blair is out campaigning for Ed Miliband in the general election. Alistair Campbell is fundraising for Ed Miliband, the man who authored the narrative that led us to a war that killed 1 million people, sent extremism cascading everywhere in the world, including in our own country, has destabilized the entire globe. Well, they put off the Chilcot report, but they can't put it off forever. And it has to come back, I believe, just a few weeks after the forthcoming general election. And it would break my heart if I'm not there when that report is issued. But more importantly, I think it would be a big disappointment to you, because if I'm not there, the case for the prosecution of Tony Blair will be much, much weaker. You can count on me on that. As long as I am alive, Tony Blair will never have a moment's peace until he's brought to justice in the end. Never. No justice, no peace. Now, Labour will say, whoever they choose, I don't want to intrude on private grief. Whoever they choose, whenever they choose, though this is the latest any government party or any party vying for government has ever been in selecting a candidate for a seat that for 40 years they held until this brief 3-year interregnum. Whoever they choose will tell you that these things are not important. Kashmir's not important. Gaza's not important. Iraq's not important. Well, they have to say that, don't they? Because their party is responsible for these crimes over decades. Responsible for them. They have to say that. Of course I know that these issues are not the most important things. The most important thing is the schools and the jobs. But it's a part of the prospectus on which people will be voting. And on that, I'm confident. I'm confident that you won't want to send a councillor, or maybe somebody who's not even yet a councillor, to Parliament when you can send a parliamentarian back to Parliament to speak on your behalf. Now, we're still looking for other candidates. I see some people in the hall that would make excellent councillors, and we want them to come forward, to give us their CV, to tell us what their qualifications are for standing in this ward or that. Bradford is cursed with a very big council. Bradford is cursed with a very big council as well as a very bad one. It's the one budget that never gets squeezed. It's the one budget that never gets cut. The nosebag into which they put their faces as soon as they enter the City Hall, and they eat their way through their council term. We're going to change all that. We want to change in the whole system that operates in City Hall. So if you think you've got the makings of a council candidate, please let us know. Hand in your CV at the office or send it to me by email or some other means. We're joined, I'm told. You know, let me say this before I introduce him. Last Saturday, Labour chose a candidate from the Labour Council of Tower Hamlets, as was. They thought it was going to be a rematch of me versus Una King. The election organiser for Labour in Bradford East, who really ought to be minding his own business because he's got his plate full, I promise you, described me on Twitter as the MP for Baghdad West and the MP for Bradford West. But Labour, which destroyed Baghdad West, should avoid that kind of talk on Twitter or anywhere else. Anyway, the Tower Hamlets councillor that they chose forgot that she had children. When she remembered, she promptly resigned. She certainly didn't want her kids attending the schools run by Labour in Bradford. That's for sure. So she remembered she had children and promptly resigned. They say that the state of our schools is because of you. Because there's too many immigrants, too many children of immigrants, too many children in homes where English is not the first language. The problem with that argument, apart from blaming the victim as it does, the problem with that argument is the makeup of Tower Hamlets is virtually exactly the same as the makeup of Bradford. But Tower Hamlets have the best schools in England in the top 20, and we're second bottom. So I'm going to make sure, if we can do it, that the expertise that transforms schools in Tower Hamlets is brought to Bradford, if necessary with a big checkbook. Let's write a transfer fee for whoever transformed the schools in Tower Hamlets. Let's sign them for Bradford. But I was the MP in Tower Hamlets. We changed everything in Tower Hamlets. We defeated one of Blair's star champions of the war. Then we won a referendum to elect a directly elected mayor in Tower Hamlets. Then we supported Lutfur Rahman, who's the best directly elected mayor anywhere in this country, which is why he's being witch hunted right now. And our members are elected councillors in Tower Hamlets. And they've made the long car journey from Tower Hamlets to here this evening. And I welcome them all, and especially Councillor Mahbub, who's somewhere in the hall, I understand. Councillor Saab, welcome. Please come and say a few words.
I didn't recognize you with your glasses.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, most merciful, most kind. Peace be upon all of you. Yes, we have driven quite a long way to be here today. And it's a privilege that I'm here to speak for a person for whom I can say I'm a councillor today. It is George Galloway that has inspired me to be in politics so that I can bring the change that was much needed in our community. And here I am today in front of you, a councillor from Tower Hamlet First, from the Mayor's Group, who we spoke earlier on. I'd like to say a few things about George Galloway. I'm here not because he's my brother, not because he himself is a George Galloway, for what he does for the humanity, for the people throughout the globe. Not for the Muslims only, for justice, for people, for humanity. And this is why I'm here tonight, all the way from London. That he speaks for justice. He wants to see a world where we all can live together as a human being. And for that, we need voices like George Galloway, and this is why we need to re-elect him, put him back into the parliament again. There are some good politicians, good MPs in the parliament, but hardly few will speak for justice. Hardly speaks for the things that happens throughout the world. They hardly speaks for Gaza, hardly speaks for Kashmir, Bangladesh, and the list goes on. But it is George Galloway, time to time, speaks for the humanity, speaks for people, and we want him to stay where he is. Can you just imagine the parliament without George Galloway? I can't do so. Can you imagine George Galloway? Can you imagine the world without George Galloway? Because you'll be people who will become voiceless. I want to say this to you, George Galloway, tonight. It is not us. People all over the world, the mothers who lost their children, the oppressed ones, are praying for you. They are with you throughout the world. They want you to go back into parliament where you can speak for them. Without you, they will become voiceless. George Galloway gave hope to many youngsters, and I want to say what is done for Tower Hamlets tonight. What we achieved in Tower Hamlets, yes, we very proudly say we have a directly elected mayor for the second time. We very proudly say we are on the top 10, I believe, in education now, from bottom. We very proudly say that we have the first Bangladeshi MP after 15 years. We should have had the Bangladeshi MP long before 15 years. But it is George Galloway that opened the door for us when he took out Kuna King, when he sacrificed one of the long career standing position in Labour Party. He sacrificed because he wanted to speak for justice. And this is what George Galloway gave us in Tower Hamlets. And this is why we are proud to say what we achieved today. If you can follow that, we trust in George Galloway. And his action speaks for himself. And this is what you will see very soon in Bradford. If George Galloway has a second term, you will see this Bradford from bottom second to come into top 10. Inshallah, I believe, God willing, George Galloway has that. I always believe when you have the right leader, that success is at your feet. So we have the right leader in Tower Hamlets, Mayor Lutfur Rahman, and this is why we have achieved many things. He united the community. He did not divide. Though a lot of people tried so. With George Galloway, you can only unite the community. Once you're united under the right, sincere leader, which is George Galloway, trust me, Bradford will become like Tower Hamlets very soon. So we want to see this. For him to do that, he needs a team. So I urge you all, come forward, be the councillor candidate. if you want to see the change, if you want to see a better future for your children, then you need to come forward today. You don't, you're the one who's going to regret. George Galloway will always remain George Galloway. For what he's done for the world, nobody can forget him. He's left a legacy, he built a legacy. But if you lose George Galloway, he doesn't lose anything. We'll lose. We'll lose an opportunity. And we don't want to lose an opportunity. And very soon, we're going to see you in MP. And I am here to say, in the near election, we'll come in a big group where we wish to stay for a week here to help George Galloway in his campaign. So that's something, the least that I can do for George Galloway. I should never forget George Galloway in my life. And I have many other friends that came with me. Azim, Rayhan, Ahad Mia, and Little Mamun will call him. So I shortened my speech here. Sorry if I have taken it long. But I see a very talented people in front of me. I see youths, I see elderly, I see the good teamwork. So please, with this spirit, let's put the message through every door in Bradford. The Without George Galloway, we will not have any opportunity for our children, for our people, not for Bangladeshi only, not for people from Pakistan only, for people of Bradford needs George Galloway to move forward. Thank you for everything.
I'm going to do this interview, you're going to eat, and then we'll have a Q&A. Ray, I didn't see you there.
Exact machinery. I also feel that the community, I sincerely believe that the community will lose out because those people are now articulate as councillors. Is there any chance that those former councillors of Respect can actually be brought back to the Respect party itself?
Well, thank you for that. I'm very much hoping that very soon some, if not all, perhaps most of those councillors will come back. But discussions are at quite a sensitive stage, so if you'll forgive me, I won't develop that point or labour that point. But I'm hoping that we'll go into these elections with several councillors and we'll come out the other end with 5 more, at least 5 more, maybe 6, maybe 7 more. That's our target. If we could get to 10 councillors, we would really make an impact in the City Hall. Really a big impact. They would never have seen anything like that before. So mistakes are made on all sides. Politics is a learning business. We hope we've learned, and we hope that we'll repair some of the damage that was undoubtedly done. So thanks for the question. Forgive me if I can't answer it entirely, fully. Any others? Yes, down the front. Where are we? Flag bearer. Rashid Bhai. The flag bearer.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I'd just like to remind anybody who doesn't know what that means. It means peace be with you.
And also with you.
And with you. I suffer from something called BBIV syndrome, blood boiling in veins syndrome. And this morning I had an attack when I switched on the radio and I heard the latest information about what the man they call Jihadi John. They tell us that he was anti-Semitic and he shouted obscenities against Jews. Was he shouting obscenities against Jews, or was he shouting obscenities against Zionists? And the British media does not want you to understand the difference. The Zionist movement, the modern Zionist movement, started in the 1890s. It is a political movement. They wanted to have their opening rally in Munich, in Germany. And the Jewish elders said, no, you cannot have this rally. You cannot found your political movement in Germany. And they had to go and have it in Switzerland. And at the end of their founding congress, they sent 2 rabbis to the Holy Land, Palestine, as it's called, on a reconnaissance. And they cabled back to the organisers, the bride is beautiful, but she's already married, meaning that the Palestine was a beautiful country, but there were already people living there. What happened? At the end of the First World War, the British needed America to come into the war. The Balfour Declaration was allowed the Zionists, the British agreed that the Zionists could settle in Palestine. They wanted to keep Germany out of the war. They wanted to keep Russia in the war because they were terrified that the Bolsheviks were going to take Britain, they're going to come out of the First World War. And Lord Balfour...
Briefly, brother. Briefly.
Lord Balfour was a well-known, documented anti-Semite. It was a way of getting rid of the Jews. It was a way of solving the Jewish problem. And we're coming up to the centenary of that now, 1917. And it was the British who created the problems. And the same with Kashmir. The people of Kashmir were asked, do they want to join India? Do they want to join Pakistan? Or do they wish to remain as an independent country? And that plebiscite has never been held. If it's all right for Scotland to have a referendum on independence, why cannot Kashmir have that, or the Palestinians have that same referendum?
Let me just say a big thank you to Balloon Works, who made these fabulous balloons at 5 minutes notice. Well, only a little more than 5 minutes. What was the fellow's name? Naz? There was one employee in particular who did a great job. If he's here, please accept my thanks. One of the young men who came all the way from Tower Hamlets for tonight was referred to earlier as Little Mamoon. He's not actually little, he's just smaller than Big Mamoon. So Little Mamoon, welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having us. You've been a great host today, and I love the curry and the rice. So thank you for the chef.
It was nice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, George. I just wanted to ask a question. Forgive me for my ignorance of not knowing enough of Bradford. I think, like what Councillor Mahmood said, and I think what the community need to do, and something that we've learned from Tower Hamlets, is come together and unite and have a common leader. And if you can all do that by coming together with a common leader, we can certainly change things in the council like we've done in Tower Hamlets. So as a community, within the next few years, we need to be coming out with leaders from yourselves who are able to articulate, converse and change the minds and the hearts of Bradford to make a better Bradford like in Tower Hamlets. Thank you very much for your time.
Bravo, beautifully said. Thanks, Mamoon. Any other questions? Yes, gentleman with the white hair, long hair, yeah.
Hi, George.
Hi.
Great honour to meet you.
Thank you.
What hope for Syriza in Greece?
Well, it's a very good question. The brother asked, what hope is brought by the victory for Syriza in Greece? It's an inspiration which will be followed, I believe, in Spain in the autumn of this year with a victory for Podemos. All over the world, people are waking up to the fact that the people who brought us into this disaster cannot possibly be the people to get us out of it. The people who wrecked the banks should not be allowed to keep the keys of the banks. The people who took us to war after war after war should not be allowed to keep the keys of the bombers. It's really not rocket science. We need change. And that's what the Respect Party stands for. Change, as Salah said earlier in his contribution. Any other? If there are no more going, yes, gentleman there, yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm all the way from Tower Hamlets. George, if any help we can help you from Tower Hamlet, we will stand shoulder to shoulder to you. Please give us anything like to help you to win that position. As my colleague says, we don't know much about the Bradford, but we want to know but we seen your activities in Tahamles. You changed everything in Tahamles. For you, we have MPs, we have more of activists in politics. Thank you very much.
Well enough. Well enough. I can't tell you how touched I am by your contribution and by those of Mamun and Mahbub, that you came all this way to make it and drove all this way and are driving all the way back is really very touching to me. What we did in Tower Hamlets is, as Mamun just said, we united people. We united Bengalis with Pakistanis, with Bengalis and Pakistanis and white people. We united supporters of different political trends in those communities. We had people in our campaign, Bangladesh politics, who support the Awami League and who support the BNP. We had Pakistani activists who supported all of the then range, and it's now a bigger range, of Pakistani political forces. We united people behind the demand for change and behind the demand for a choice. You see, the reason Una King voted for the Iraq war, even though 90% of the borough was against the war, was because she believed that the voters had no choice. She could do what she liked, and the voters would have no choice. What could they do? Elect a Tory? It's the poorest borough in England at that time. So she knew, or thought she did, that she could commit any crime and she'd still be returned to Parliament. And what we did is we came along and proved that that's not true. That if you offend and breach your trust, your covenant with the people can vote you out. But they can only vote you out if there's a real alternative. An alternative that's credible and that can speak, can think, can do interviews, can do the things that a politician needs to do. And my task in the next 5 years, because I should say, in the presence of my 7-month-old son, this next one will be my last term in Parliament. I will have been, if I'm elected, I will have been in Parliament for 33 years. That's enough for anybody. That's enough for anybody. My task is to train up a group of the next leaders, the next generation of leaders, so that we can pick from 5, 6, 10 people as to who would be the best person to replace me. We don't want to get in the situation Labour's in, of putting adverts in the paper. If you want to be the MP, please apply. And you can be from anywhere. You can be from anything. You can have done anything or nothing. Just please give us a candidate, because there's only a few weeks to go and we don't have one. We won't be in that position. Over the next 5 years, we will develop, inshallah, a group of potential MPs that will stand here and stand elsewhere with a real credible chance of winning. Because, mashallah, I have many sons, but they're all really young. And so I can't hang on until they're old enough. In the Pakistani tradition, the Bengali tradition, I can't hang on until they're old enough to run. So we need that leadership to come from you. And I'm sure that we're going to get it. Yes, brother? Raj?
Yeah, hi, just a quick question. I'm not actually from Bradford.
Okay.
On your previous, when you stood previously, there was a lot of support for you. I've been sort of watching Facebook, etc. There's some people in Bradford that feel you're not spending enough time here, etc. What are you doing to quell those fears?
Well, if anyone has those fears, it's because they're listening to lies. I'm here every weekend. I live at 66 Wetley Hill. You can come and see me anytime. I have a surgery every Saturday morning at 2 Grattan Road. I'm here every weekend. I don't know what else you can do. I can't be here during the week because Parliament's on during the week. Though, for the next 75 days, I'll be here almost every day because Parliament has more or less gone into hibernation. Labour have tried everything. He's the MP for Bradford West. He's not here. They used to tweet, "Where's George?" when I was actually sitting in my surgery. Now, every week, do the maths, for 3 years, that means hundreds and hundreds of people have been to see me. And I've tried to fix their problems. So they know, at least they know, that this is just a lie. You'll find me everywhere. The difference between me and the last guy, I don't like to speak ill of the dead, he might have been here, but he was in the boozer, in the Hare and Hounds. He might have been here, but he wasn't on Sky News. He wasn't on Question Time. He wasn't on Newsnight. He wasn't in front of the US Senate. He wasn't addressing a big rally in Newcastle, because nobody wanted to hear anything that he had to say. So, I have local responsibilities, and I have national responsibilities, and I have international responsibilities, and I have to try and balance all those things. My feeling is that the majority of people in Bradford are proud that they're MPs on Question Time. Because the last MP would never have been on Question Time. What's his name? Jerry Sutcliffe. He's been the MP here for 25 years or more. He's never been on Question Time. Because nobody's interested in what he's got to say. Because he doesn't have anything to say. And he can't even say it. So, I put it this way last time, and I put it again because I don't know who the candidate against me will be. You can send a councillor to Parliament. But why would you want to do that when you've got a parliamentarian that you can be proud of, that you can see on the television? You can say, that guy is speaking for us. That doesn't mean I'm going to neglect my local responsibilities, and I never have. In my opening remarks, I spoke mainly about the local things I've done. But I'm not going to pretend to you that when the Chilcot inquiry comes out, I'm not going to be there every minute of the day trying to put Tony Blair in jail. I'm not going to say, oh sorry, I've got to check on the potholes in Toller Lane. You'll have to let Mr. Blair go free. And I don't think you'd want me to. No. I really don't think you'd want me to. But thanks anyway for the question. Yes, lady at the front.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening, George. Thank you for the audience today for coming. I just wanted to second what George has actually said just now. Since George has been elected for MP in Bradford West, he has been here every single Saturday holding surgeries for his constituents. And it concerns me when people with fake accounts go onto Facebook acting like social media warriors, not actually using their own pictures and their faces to attack George Galloway. If anybody has anything to say to George Galloway is sat at Grattan Road on Saturday from 10 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I assure you, I have made plenty of appointments for constituents in the Bradford West area for George Galloway. What we need to understand is, since George Galloway came to Bradford West, Bradford was never mentioned in the national media. It is mentioned all the time. The reason why it's mentioned all the time is because of George Galloway. Yes, he is a celebrity, but at the end of the day, we have this celebrity and we can use him for the benefit of Bradford. Please do not listen to the hatred that comes through social media, and do not use that as your source of information. If you want a source of information, Google it and use it. In this time of technology, there is no excuse for ignorance. Thank you.
Bravo, thank you, Naz. If you Google the word Bradford prior to the by-election, and Google the word Bradford after the by-election, and you'll see the point that Naz is making. We have not only put Bradford back where it belongs on the national map, we put it on the international map. As Councillor Mahboub said, there's people in Gaza saying prayers that you re-elect me in the election in May. There's people all over the world now interested in what's happening here. The Rohingya people in Burma, a persecuted Muslim minority in Burma. Nobody did anything for them. Nobody lifted a finger to help them. It was us that organised a big rally in Centenary Square in Bradford. It was us that did it. When the drone attacks in Pakistan were highlighted by my comrade Asif Khan and his friends in the PTI, it was us that were there supporting them. When Gaza was being attacked, it was us that organised the demonstration that was seen all over the world, the biggest demonstration for Gaza. Last summer it was the biggest demonstration for Gaza outside of London, anywhere in Britain. And when the Charlie Hebdo affair erupted, even though it was pitch dark on a Saturday night, it was 0 degrees, there was snow and ice on the ground, it was us that organised a rally to defend the honour of the Prophet Muhammad and to say we will not accept these kind of slanders and smears against the Prophet. So we have really put Bradford back where it belongs, firmly on the map. People can choose to go back to mediocrity. I really don't mean to be offensive, because I quite like Marsha Singh. But there was nobody here for 40 years that even the police officers inside Parliament knew who they were. That's the truth of the matter. Bradford has 5 MPs. People talk as if I'm the only MP. I'm the MP for all of Bradford. There's 5 MPs in Bradford. Nobody ever hears anything about any of the others. Except for that husky. We got that husky back, Murphy. Thank God Murphy's back home. Philip Davis helped on that. But none of the others actually did. So I really think it's important to keep this in the proper perspective. It's true that if you elect Mrs. Nobody for the Labour Party, who may or may not be chosen on Monday, who knows, who may or may not resign 3 days later, who knows. Well, maybe, just maybe, it's not by any means certain, they'll be seen more on the street, but they won't be seen more on their feet in Parliament, and they won't be seen more on the national and international media. And that's what a parliamentarian's for. An MP is not a councillor. An MP has to deal with local, national and international matters. Now, I don't know who Mrs. Nobody is going to be, but I'm pretty sure she doesn't know as much about these great issues as I do. I've been in Parliament nearly 30 years already. I'm pretty sure that she will not know the way to goal, the way to score a goal in politics, the moment to strike, the speech to make, the intervention to make. On Question Time a couple of weeks ago in Finchley, they came thinking they were setting me up, a lynch mob, but I defeated them. There was about 50 of them, and there was one of me, and who came out on top?
George.
Because of my experience, that's why, and any talent that God gave me. Because of my experience, I know when to shut up and when to speak. And I knew that they were giving themselves enough rope to hang themselves. Their behavior was so bad, I knew that the watching public at home would be condemning them. And therefore, what I had to do was to remain perfectly calm. Wait for the moment and strike. Now, that kind of experience takes a long time to acquire. And you make a lot of mistakes on the way. But I've acquired it now. I hope that you won't throw it away. Well, look, we said we'd finish at 9, and it's now 20 past. So, with your permission, I'll ask for some closing words Yeah, sorry, there's a hand going up at the back anxiously. Go ahead. Last question.
Peace be on you for respect, George.
And to you, sir. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Khalid. I've just been through an issue with regards to the visas. I think the issue that I'm talking about might come for everybody here, perhaps. Me and my wife had to wait for a visa for a year and a half, despite the fact that I had all the issues and the paperwork in place. There are a lot of people who are waiting for spouse visa, and I think the law and the parliament discriminates against us, specifically Pakistanis.
Well, it's a very...
raise the voice of the parliament from that point of view to do something about it. Because I still don't know, after 2.5 years, for my baby, whether she will get a visa from overseas. It's an issue. I'd like to raise that.
Well, mashallah, all's well that ends well, and you've got a beautiful baby, Aisha, there, 3 months old, whom I met earlier. This is not just discrimination on racial grounds. It's discrimination on class grounds. My wife has an Indonesian passport. I had no problem getting her in because I earn more than £18,000 a year. But what if you only earn 17,500 or 13,500 or 9,500? That means you can't have the wife that you choose. But only if that wife is coming from certain countries. Do you think an American wife has any difficulty getting in here? Or an Australian wife? It's wives or husbands who look like most of you. These are the people who are being discriminated against. I could talk about discrimination all night, and that's one of them. Most of my cases are immigration cases. I'm on talking terms with the guards at Heathrow, at Bradford, at Gatwick, because I'm phoning them up trying to stop people getting put onto planes and deported. I'm on talking terms with the officials in the jails, in the holding centres. The people in the Home Office groan when they see my phone light up, my number light up on their phone. Oh, not him again. Immigration work I've been doing for almost 30 years. I'll tell you a funny story. One young man, when I was an MP in Glasgow, came to me looking for a council house. I got him a flat in a tower block. He was really grateful for it, though it wasn't a very desirable tower block. And he never forgot it. And last year, when he became the president of Iran, he sent me a card to say, I never forgot that council flat you got me in Glasgow. And there's a council flat. There's a council flat in Tehran waiting for you anytime you like. See, you never know who you're helping. But I work for every constituent, and right to the last minute. I don't take the view that some MPs take. Well, that's not a very good case. Or, I don't really agree with you, or I don't really believe you. I don't take that view. I take the same view as a lawyer. It's my duty to represent you, whether you're guilty or innocent, whether I believe you or don't, and I'll fight for every single case right up to the last second, even as they're being put onto the plate. But while I'm on the subject of discrimination, here's another of my campaigns. As some of you know, I'm a part owner of a back-to-back in Manningham, in Hollings Road. When we bought it, it was not a very desirable house, and the street had one or two difficulties too. We bought it knocked down after the riots. Rob, my colleague, who's here in the hall, recently, because he's moving up in life, getting on, he recently bought a nice house in Haworth. He's the same man, with the same driving record, with the same car. But his insurance was more than £1,000 cheaper in Haworth than it was in Manningham. How can that be? That's collective punishment. He's a good driver, with no claims, no accidents. He's being punished because somebody else in the street, or being Hollings Road, a few people in the street, have bad records. This is completely unacceptable. And I'm demanding from these insurance companies and from the government action. Because insurance should be individually assessed. If you're a bad driver with a lot of claims, you should pay the price for that, not your neighbour, not somebody who lives in the same district as you. It's completely discriminatory. And if you know about me, you'll know that discrimination really makes my blood boil. Well, look, yes, it is profiteering. Now, I'm going to ask my colleagues to say just a few words, very short, before we bid you good night. I want to thank you for coming tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the food. And remember, next Saturday at 1 o'clock. Next Saturday at 1 o'clock, 2 Grattan Road, BD1. That's when the campaign kicks off. And follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook, and we'll make sure that we all stay in touch. Shiraz is our taller candidate. This was jointly his affair tonight. He has paid for 50% of it.